Author Amish Tripathi, or Amish as he prefers to be called, is now the stuff of Indian publishing legend. The latest in his Shiva Trilogy, The Oath of the Vayuputras, sold 5 lakh copies within a week of publication, and cumulative sales for the trilogy have clocked 40 crore rupees. While Amish's brand of masala mythology has given him a cult following, his book marketing methods could win easy place in any management handbook. The author, who already has a 5 crore rupee advance for his next work from publishers Westland, is on the A-list today, savouring his success. Amish, thanks so much for being on the A-list.
Pleasure being here. Thank you.
The third book is out, The Oath of the Vayuputras is out. It's over. The trilogy is over. Something that you started many years back has finally reached its culmination point. Is it like cathartic, or how is it feeling at this point?
There's certainly a sense of completion with the third book. This is a book series that has changed my life completely by 180 degrees. I'm a far happier person than I used to be. I'm much calmer than I used to be. So there's certainly a sense of completion. But I'm not going to miss the Shiva Trilogy, because and you miss the book only if the characters go away, right? I mean, Lord Shiva isn't going away anyway. I'm going to hold on to him. So I'm not going to miss the book series, but yes, there's a sense of completion.
No, I just mean, the characters, letting go of the characters, finally giving them their...
That's the point I'm making. I'm not letting go of the characters. They're with me. They're not going away anyway.
I think maybe the readers will feel a little bereft. No, honestly, because there will be closure. That happens to any series, like if you read Harry Potter and after the last Harry Potter, you're like, oh, now what? It's over.
Yes, for a reader, yes, I can, perhaps I can sense that. Yes, I've read the Harry Potter series, and I will certainly feel that at the end of the Amish Trilogy, whenever Amitav Ghosh comes out with the last book. But as an author, you don't really feel that, because at least for me, it's not that the characters have gone away anyway. I can... There's so many times I'm dreaming and and I think of them, or I'm on a walk and I think of them, and there are subplots that might emerge which will never come in the book, but there are there's things which keep emerging, so they haven't gone away anyway, at least as far as I'm concerned.
You've already got the 5 crore rupee advance for your next book, and do you have any idea what it's going to be about?
No, I haven't decided as yet what topic I'm going to write on. There are a couple of ideas. So what we have, Westland and I, what we have is a preemptive contract. What Westland has said is, of the ideas that we've discussed, whichever one I pick up and write a book series on, they've blocked that one with this contract. But I haven't decided which specific one it will be. What is certain is it will be in the space of mythology and history, and that is my area of passion, and that's where I'll be writing most of my books.
When people call your books and they're dubbed as masala mythology, how do you take to that description? Is it something that describes it aptly, or do you think it's just a...
there are various descriptions that emerge. In fact, one of the problems with that I'd been told, for my first book being rejected by every publisher, was that they couldn't figure out where to slot it. Is it a philosophy book? Is it a religious book? Is it a mythology book? Is it a historical book? So they were saying, how do we market it if we don't know where to slot it? So that was one of the reasons being given to me. So there are various descriptions that do emerge from various different people. In my mind, I don't really think of a genre. I think of the story the way it comes to me.
So if they want to
I don't really think of what genre. Does it fit into a philosophy genre? Does it fit into a religious genre? Does it fit into an action thriller genre? Does it fit into mythology retelling genre? I don't really think about that. Frankly, I don't really care about that.
Yeah, as long as people are reading.
I'm bothered about the story itself. That's
so
what really captures me.
So they can call it masala mythology, whatever mythology.
Everyone has their own description, and one of the beauties of India, one of the beautiful aspects of living in India is that we are a free country. Everyone has a right to their opinion.
Which brings me to reviews. There are a lot of reviews which you get. All mainline publications now carry a review of your books, and it's almost done with, okay, we have to do this. You know what I mean? There is this whole, okay, we are doing it, but this is in spite of how he writes, but it is about what he writes. That what he writes has become very important, though we still have serious problems with how he writes. Does that affect you?
You're right. There are, I must say the reviews are usually kind on the story and the philosophy. One gets good reviews on that aspect, but on the language, yes, there are concerns which one receives from the mainline press. The way I see it is, look, every person should be true to who they are. you know, and behave naturally.
Yeah.
Not just in terms of writing books, but in every aspect of your life, because you have to be true to who you are. Having said that, are there improvements possible, you know, in my books? Of course there are, you know, and I wouldn't actually just stop at the language. I would go further into the philosophical aspects, because I only know the philosophies of Hinduism very well. Do I know the philosophies well enough of Christianity, of Islam, of other great cultures around the world, other great countries? No, frankly, I don't. You know, I know them at a superficial level. I don't know them as deeply as I know the philosophies of Hinduism and Buddhism. So I need to learn a lot more on on that aspect, which will help me improve my books further. The way I see it, there's huge room for improvement, in my books, and I'll keep working at it. But having said that, I will always be true to myself. I'll never do anything that appears unnatural
or contrived
to me. Yeah. So and any feedback is an opportunity to improve. But whether to accept or reject that feedback is my call, and I'll only do things which appear natural to me. When you're writing, then you can't allow marketing aspects to interfere at that point of time, because then you're corrupting the book.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't do market research and write a book. That's disgusting.
You said everyone keeps asking you about how you marketed your book and what the many novel things that you did around it, and nobody asks you too much about philosophy. So I'm going to ask you about philosophy.
No, a lot of readers do. I said in the media it doesn't happen.
Yes, we terrible media people.
No. I'm not saying you guys are terrible. I'm just saying that in media interviews many times, yes, the philosophical aspects are not discussed.
So I'm going to ask you about the philosophy.
Shoot.
I'm going to ask you about the philosophy of selling a book.
That's a gotcha question. Okay. Okay. See, the way I see it is, I think it's frankly childish and immature to think that a good book sells itself. It doesn't happen. I'm a voracious reader, and I can give you a long list of books which I think should have been bestsellers, but they aren't, because no one's heard of them. Now, how the hell are you going to buy a book if you haven't heard of it? And if you haven't bought the book, you can't read it, right? So I think it's immature to think that marketing is not important. The way I see it, you have to have a good book and you have to market it well. There's no either or. You can't make a choice between the two of them. You have to do both. That's the way I see it.
I think it was Ruskin Bond who said, and he was quoting some other writer.
Authors should be read, not seen.
Yes. But he was quoting someone else.
Yeah, he was quoting someone else.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that doesn't work anymore.
No.
I mean, that's
it didn't work sadly, it didn't work in an earlier era either, because till 10-15 years ago, when marketing was not taken seriously, a bestseller in India would be 5,000 copies, which is frankly pretty sad, because you're not really having an impact with 5,000 copies.
Absolutely.
Frankly, and is it that there weren't books at that time which could have made a massive impact? Weren't there good books written in those days? Of course they were, but they weren't marketed properly. So then how's it going to sell? So no, I think marketing is crucial. It is crucial. Having said that, look, when you are writing, then you can't allow marketing aspects to interfere at that point of time, because then you're corrupting the book.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't do market research and write a book. That's disgusting. Okay, you have to write the book from the purity of your heart. Absolutely. At least that's the way I look at it. I mean, everyone has a right to their opinion, but the way I look at it is, you have to write a book with the purity of your heart. But once the book is complete, then you have to be a pragmatic marketing guy and figure out, okay, how do I sell this thing?
Okay, there are plenty of young writers out there now. Okay, and post Chetan Bhagat, post you, the market has opened up. Indian publishing used to be rather snooty and very exclusive and be doing very literary books, but now they are looking for young voices or young authors or not even very young authors. That doesn't matter.
Actually, if you go back in ancient India, literature was never an elitist enterprise. It's only in the last 100 years that it became elitist. If you go in ancient India, literature was always something for everyone. I mean,
democratic.
The Ramayana and Mahabharata weren't just read by the elite boss, it was read by everyone.
Yeah.
So we are reviving that culture. I would see it that way. We are reviving our ancient culture.
So now, I mean, they are looking for new writers, new themes. It doesn't need to be about the diaspora and about Indians living somewhere and, longing for the Raj, and all those themes are now out of fashion. But what I want you to talk about is, authors now get your first contract and they think, okay, now we are settled. You've got your contract, you're going to be a published author, but that's not where it ends. What I want to ask you about is the distribution. That's really, really important, and I don't think publishers have really got that right for everyone. You've got it right because you probably invested or inputted on it. So how does that work?
There are only a few publishers, frankly, who have distribution capabilities in India. And whichever industry you look at in India, not just books, any industry, distribution is a key comparative advantage. We're a vast country, we're a subcontinent. So that is a key issue. Yes, many publishers, frankly, do not have the capabilities to distribute. My publisher fortunately does. Westland is, it has a great distribution network across the country, which makes a big difference in, sales. No doubt about it.
But what do authors do then? Because distribution is not
authors
in their
can't
hands.
do anything about
Absolutely.
it. They can't. I mean, you can't go and open up warehouses, right?
Yeah.
Authors can make an impact on marketing, no doubt about it. But on sales and distribution, they can support, but they can't create the chain. So that has to be a capability that the publisher brings in. And what the author can do is make sure that he works if he has the opportunity of choice. He or she should make sure that you work with a publisher with a good distribution network.
Okay, but have your books now opened up new markets maybe for Indian reading? Because
it would be arrogant of me to think that my books have opened up some markets. I would say that the publishing market itself is growing, and it's because the publishing market is the Indian publishing industry is a part of India, and India itself is growing. So the markets are opening up in various industries. A rising tide lifts all boats. So it's a good time, a good opportunity for the publishing industry to capitalize on the rising wealth in India, the rising confidence levels in India. The improvement in distribution networks, the improvement in infrastructure, not as fast as it should be, but there certainly is an improvement in infrastructure. So, I mean, as India rises, well, every industry within India will also rise. Publishing is one of them.
But there's still this divide between literary fiction and commercial fiction. One has the snob value, one has the numbers.
I find this divide, frankly, very immature and childish, because there are books which are good. There are books which are not good. For example, Autobiography of a Yogi, it may not be called a literary book, but it's a brilliant book. It's of course a huge commercial success, but it's a book that will change your life. So should you not read it just because it's not in that literary language? At the same time, there are literary books which are fantastic, which are very well researched, which have great philosophies and which are great stories as well. Look at the Amish Trilogy of Amitav Ghosh. So I find this entire divide, frankly, very childish and immature. There are good books and there are bad books. Who cares what genre they fall under? That's the way I see it.
Unfortunately, publishing doesn't see it that way.
There may be some who don't, and hopefully there are some who do. But I'm telling you how I see it. I find this entire divide, frankly, very, very childish. Very childish. Public debate is dominated by two groups of extremists. The religious extremists of all religions, on one hand, and on the other hand, the secular extremists. And in my view, they are both idiots.
The core philosophy of the trilogy is this concept of evil and how subjective it can be.
The book began as a pure philosophical thesis, and the philosophy at the root of the trilogy is a philosophy of what is evil. And many times we confuse someone who is just radically different from us as evil. There are many Indians who call Pakistanis as evil, and I'm sure there are many Pakistanis who think likewise of us. And the question that emerges is who would be right, and if you agree that look, both of them are just two different ways of life. I'm not a flower child. I'm not saying we have to somehow get along with Pakistani terrorists. Of course not. But I'm just saying that evil exists beyond differences, and that is the question that I'm trying to answer. That what is evil? And that was the genesis of the trilogy. It was a pure philosophical thesis which got converted into an adventure
into sales
to
of 40 crore
philosophy.
rupees. Okay, At the end of this book, or really in your acknowledgements, you sort of hint that you might be looking at the Mahabharata.
It is one of the story ideas in my mind, but I'm not sure it's going to be the next one that I'll write. I still haven't decided. But I can say that all my story ideas are all in the mythology history space.
Again, in the introduction to this book, you've spoken about how you were an atheist for a brief period of time. Now, where did that come from? And
I grew up in a very religious household.
yeah.
So I was religious when I was young. I turned into an atheist in the early 90s. You're probably too young to remember, but at that...
No, I look deceptively young. I'm very old. Yeah.
But sadly, India and specifically our city, Mumbai, we passed through a phase of insanity at that point of time. There were repeated religious riots, bomb blasts, and it turned many of us in our gang against religion. We were a cosmopolitan gang. A majority of us were Hindus, but there were people of other religions as well. And we started seeing religion as the cause of all these fights. My father used to try to explain to me that, look, there are bad people, but you can't blame religion for it. And in fact, if those religious extremists are causing problems, then it's the duty of the religious liberals to speak even more loudly. I was too young. I didn't really understand that point of view at that point of time. So yes, I turned into an atheist for 10-12 years, and the books, writing the books kind of pulled me back to faith.
I think a problem is, and I think you're asked this question a lot of times, I think a lot of times being deeply religious is being confused with being bigoted. You know, so when you say you're deeply religious and you're writing about mythology, Hindu mythology, a lot of time people sort of ask you, oh, does that mean you're right wing? I don't see the validity in that argument. What do you have to say on that?
You know, the misfortune of India is that public debate is dominated by two groups of extremists. The religious extremists of all religions on one hand, and on the other hand the secular extremists. And in my view, they are both idiots. Okay? And the good news for India is that a majority of us Indians exist in the center. We are all deeply religious and also deeply liberal, and which is why India is a stable country. Because a majority of us are not idiots. The misfortune, like I said, is that public debate is dominated by these two groups of extremists.
I just feel that you don't need to deny your religion.
Of course not. And in fact, in the Indian way, being deeply religious automatically makes you liberal as well. Look at Ajmer Sharif, for example. It's the tomb of a Muslim Sufi saint, but a large number of the people who visit there are actually Hindus and Christians. Look at Mount Mary Church in Mumbai. It's a Christian church, but a large number of people who visit there are Hindus and Muslims as well, who go and pray in their own manner. Nobody finds it wrong. A little known fact is that many of the Ganeshji idols made in Ganesh Visarjan, many of the Durga Ma idols in Durga Puja in Calcutta are actually made by Muslims. In some of these artisan workshops, there is a tradition that the Muslim idol maker will do the first arti or the first puja of the idol before it's taken away by his Hindu customers. This is Indian religiosity, something which sadly our opinion makers who shout and scream in TV debates probably don't understand.
But aren't you tired of these constant disclaimers now? And as the books gain in popularity and sales, I think there's a question which is so often asked of you, and so you constantly have to say, I am deeply religious, and I am. Isn't it tiring?
No, it's not. I mean, I see it as just repeating who I am, and I say again and again that all of us religious liberals in the center, the problem is that we don't speak loudly enough. So the opinions, the public debate is dominated by, like I said, these two groups of extremists, and we religious liberals have to speak much more loudly. Okay. Look at the issue of women's empowerment. It's just been hijacked by interpretations that come out of scriptures are all from religious extremists, which are all anti-women interpretations. Every scripture also has pro-women interpretations. It's a duty of us religious liberals to bring out those interpretations.
I just want to ask you, and it's just a little theory, that with the story of Lord Shiva, which you have reinterpreted, unlike the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, which were televised and we saw a lot of it, or there was this oral tradition of telling us, was it easier because these were stories that a lot of the readers who your book targeted or who liked your book hadn't read?
No, not really. Yeah. I mean, there are very few people who, frankly, who don't know of Lord Shiva in
no,
India.
of course,
Or,
but
you know,
I
or-
mean
or
the
his
whole
stories.
the story
But
of.
having said that, even in the versions of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, what some people may be aware of is only of television serial in the 1980s, which
Ramanand Sagar.
was based on the Ramcharitmanas, which was actually a 16th century modernization of the original Valmiki Ramayana. So that itself actually had changes from the original Valmiki Ramayana.
So are your books an interpretation of mythology or they're fiction?
I always say they are fiction. They are based on interpretations of mythology, but I never claim it's the truth. I don't know what the truth is. Only Lord Shiva knows what the truth is. This is my interpretation of the truth.
Okay, thanks so much, Amish, and all the best with your next book. Please tell us what it is first. Since I didn't put out any other spoilers, I had so many more questions on the book.
See, I can tell you when I'm sure. I myself
How
am
you
not
can
sure
tell
at
us
this point in
first.
time. So
You can come on the A list and tell us first.
once again,
Okay.
sure.
Thanks so much, Amish.
Pleasure meeting you. Take care.